I'm 6 years old when I first understand what disappointment sounds like. It echoes through our marble-floored hallway, carried by my mother's voice as she speaks on the phone. Finally, Diane. A boy. The ultrasound confirmed it today. Mom's laugh tinkles like the crystal wind chimes Grandma Alara hung in our garden. I know. After Serafina, we weren't sure we'd ever. Yes, exactly. Thorn is absolutely beside himself. I clutch my sketchbook tighter, pressing myself against the cool wall. The fabric of my dress catches on the textured wallpaper, making a soft scratching sound that thankfully goes unnoticed. We're thinking of naming him Orion. Isn't it perfect? A strong name, a leader's name. Another laugh. Well, you know how it is with girls. Serafina's sweet enough, but Thorn needs someone to carry on the Calloway legacy. My fingers smudge the charcoal drawing I'd wanted to show her. A family portrait I'd spent all afternoon perfecting. Dad's stern face, Mom's flowing hair, my small figure between them. There's a blank space now, where my thumb has smeared across the paper. Oh, you should see Thorn planning already. Investment accounts, private schools, sports teams. Mom's voice drops lower, but in the hollow hallway, every word finds me. It'll be different this time. No more artistic tendencies to worry about. The sound of her heels clicks against the marble, growing louder. I scramble back toward my room, but she rounds the corner before I can escape. Serafina. Her hand flies to her chest. Darling, you startled me. What are you doing lurking in the hallway? I hold up my ruined drawing with trembling hands. I made this for you. She glances at it, her perfectly painted lips tightening at the corners. That's nice, dear. But look at your dress now, all covered in charcoal. Go change before your father gets home. She steps past me, phone still pressed to her ear. Sorry, Diane. Just Serafina making a mess again. Now about the nursery colors. I retreat to my room, closing the door softly behind me. The drawing falls from my hands into the wastebasket, but I don't cry. Instead, I pull out a fresh sheet of paper and begin again. This time, I draw myself alone, standing in a garden full of wind chimes. The sound they make in my imagination is nothing like my mother's laugh. In the distance, I hear her voice rise with excitement as she continues planning for my brother's arrival. For the son who will be everything I am not. I press the charcoal harder against the paper, until it snaps in my hand. The day Orion comes home from the hospital, Mom hands him to me like he's made of crystal. I'm barely tall enough to sit properly in the oversized armchair, but she doesn't notice, already turning away to adjust the nursery curtains. Watch his head, Serafina. And don't move from that spot. She fusses with the pale blue fabric. Your father's bringing in the photographer for family portraits. Orion's tiny fingers wrap around my thumb, and something inside me shifts. He's so small, so perfect. Nothing like the rival I'd imagined during Mom's pregnancy. There you are. Dad strides in with the photographer, his presence filling the room like always. Mari, darling, let's get the shot with just us and Orion first. I stay frozen in the chair, Orion sleeping peacefully in my arms, as they position themselves by the window. The photographer adjusts his equipment, and Mom reaches for Orion. Wait, I say, my voice coming out smaller than intended. Can't I be in the picture too? Dad checks his watch. We're on a schedule, Serafina. These are for the birth announcement. But I'm his sister. Mom's smile tightens. Darling, you're not dressed properly. Look at your hair. It's coming loose again. We'll take some casual shots later. Later never comes. The photographer leaves after an hour of capturing perfect moments I'm not part of. Mom takes Orion upstairs for his nap, and Dad disappears into his study. I find myself back in the nursery as the sun sets, watching Orion sleep. His mobile casts dancing shadows on the walls, stars and planets spinning slowly above his crib. You'll need to help with him, Mom says from the doorway, making me jump. I've enrolled you in the afternoon art program instead of morning sessions. That way you can watch Orion while I handle the Foundation's charity events. My chest tightens. But MS. Reynolds said the morning light is best for Serafina. Her voice carries that familiar edge of disappointment. Family comes first. You're old enough to understand that now. I look down at Orion, peaceful in his designer sleepwear, surrounded by everything new and perfect. He'll never know what it's like to wear hand-me-downs or feel the weight of constant disappointment. Yes, Mom. She leaves without another word, her heels clicking down the hallway. I reach into the crib and straighten Orion's blanket, even though it doesn't need straightening. I'll take care of you, I whisper, and mean it. But someday they'll see me too. In the growing darkness, Orion's mobile continues its slow dance. casting shadows that look less like stars now and more like bars across his sleeping face. My report card sits on Dad's mahogany desk, straight A's gleaming under the study's warm lighting. He barely glances at it before setting it aside to help Orion with his math homework. Dad, I got into the advanced placement program. I stand straighter, fingers twisting behind my back. All 5 subjects. He points at Orion's worksheet. Remember, son, compound interest is key to understanding wealth management. Your future depends on these fundamentals. Orion, now 12, shoots me an apologetic look. I manage a small smile back. It's not his fault. Actually, I press on, Mrs. Henderson thinks I could qualify for early college admission next year. She wants to meet with you and Mom to discuss. Serafina. Mom appears in the doorway, perfect as always in her designer suit. The Hendersons called. Orion's math tutor is sick, and they need someone to cover his session today. But I have my art portfolio review. This is about Orion's future. Her voice carries that familiar steel edge. Your little hobby can wait. The word hobby hits like a slap. 6 years of advanced art classes, regional competitions, and gallery features reduced to a child's pastime. It's not a hobby. The words escape before I can stop them. And I can't keep dropping everything for Orion. I have my own. Own what? Mom's perfectly shaped eyebrows arch. Dreams of becoming an artist? Being realistic about your capabilities isn't cruel, Serafina. It's practical. Dad doesn't look up from Orion's homework. Listen to your mother. I got accepted to 3 summer art programs, I say, pulling the letters from my bag. Full scholarships. Even the Riverside Institute. Enough. Mom's hand cuts through the air. We've indulged this long enough. You'll take over Orion's tutoring schedule permanently. It's time you contributed meaningfully to this family. The letters crumple in my grip. Behind Mom, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the study's window, fading into the background like always, while Orion sits in the spotlight of Dad's desk lamp. You're right, I say quietly, watching their surprise at my apparent surrender. It is time I contributed meaningfully. That night, I submit my early college applications without their knowledge. As I seal the last envelope, I hear them downstairs, praising Orion's latest achievement. The sound fuels something new inside me. Not just hurt anymore, but determination. I'll show them what meaningful contribution looks like. And when I'm done, they'll understand exactly what they overlooked. On my desk, next to my sketchbook, sits an acceptance letter from Riverside Institute's summer program. I've already signed it. Grandma Alara's garden is the only place that still feels like home. I find her there, pruning roses in the late afternoon sun, her silver hair gleaming. I submitted the applications, I say, settling on the stone bench beside her flower beds. They don't know yet. She sets her shears down, studying me with those keen eyes that never miss anything. And Riverside? Accepted. Full scholarship. My fingers trace the weathered bench edge. Mom wants me to take over Orion's tutoring permanently instead. Of course she does. Alara's voice carries an edge I've never heard before. Your mother has always excelled at using other people's talents to polish her golden boy. The bitterness in her tone makes me look up sharply. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she disappears into her greenhouse, returning with a leather-bound portfolio I've never seen before. Inside are sketches, dozens of them, in a style hauntingly similar to mine. Your mother's work, Alara says quietly. From before she married your father. My hands shake as I turn the pages. The drawings are extraordinary, raw talent refined through years of practice. I don't understand. Mom hates art. She calls it a hobby. Yes, that's what Thorne called it too, when he convinced her to give it up. Alara sits beside me, her gardening gloves leaving smudges of earth on her expensive slacks. She was accepted to the Royal Academy in London. Instead, she chose to become Mrs. Thorne Calloway, perfect society wife and mother. The portfolio feels heavier now. Why are you showing me this? Because history doesn't have to repeat itself, Serafina. She takes my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Your mother's resentment didn't start with you. It started with her own surrendered dreams. A distant car door slams, Mom's weekly visit to check on Grandma. Alara quickly takes the portfolio, but presses something else into my hands. A small key and a bank statement. I've opened an account in your name, she whispers. Enough to get you started at Riverside, and then some. Don't let them clip your wings like she did hers. Mom's heels click on the garden path. I slip the key into my pocket just as she rounds the corner, her smile tightening at the sight of us together. Serafina? What are you doing here? Orion's waiting for his tutorial session. I stand, catching the slight tremor in Mom's hand as her eyes fix on Alara's greenhouse, where the portfolio disappeared to. For the first time, I wonder if what I see in her expression is fear rather than disappointment. Actually, Mom, I say, we need to talk about Riverside. The graduation ceremony programs arrived the same day as my full scholarship letter. I place both on the dining room table before dinner, my heart hammering against my ribs as Mom arranges the silverware with military precision. I have news, I announce when everyone's seated. Dad barely looks up from his phone, but Orion gives me an encouraging smile. The scholarship committee selected me for their full-ride program. I'll be able to study art and business administration at. Perfect timing, Mom interrupts, passing the salad to Dad. We've been discussing Orion's college preparations. Having you nearby to continue his tutoring will be essential for his success. Mom, I won't be nearby. The scholarship is for Serafina. Dad finally looks up. Your brother's future is at a critical juncture. The Callaway name depends on his success. Orion shifts uncomfortably. I can get another tutor, Dad. Sarah should. Should what? Mom's voice carries that dangerous silk. Abandon her family responsibilities for some artistic fantasy? The word fantasy ignites something in me. I pull out Grandma Alara's bank statement. I've already accepted. Classes start in August. The crystal water glass slips from Mom's hand, shattering against the hardwood floor. Nobody moves to clean it up. You what? Dad's face darkens. Without consulting us? Like you consulted me about becoming Orion's permanent tutor? The words taste like freedom and fear mixed together. Or about canceling my art classes. Or about. Enough. Mom stands, her chair scraping back. I didn't raise you to be this selfish. No, you raised me to be invisible. I match her stance, trembling but upright. Except when you needed someone to prop up your golden child. Sarah, please. Orion starts, but Dad cuts him off. If you leave, he says quietly, don't expect any support from this family. Financial or otherwise. I think of Mom's hidden portfolio in Grandma's greenhouse, of dreams surrendered to expectations, of the way history tries to repeat itself in the worst ways. I already have support. I touch the bank statement. From someone who actually sees me. Mom's face goes white as she recognizes Alara's signature. You went to her. After everything we've done for you. Done for me. A laugh escapes me, sharp and unfamiliar. Name one thing you've done that wasn't actually for Orion. The silence stretches like a tightrope between us. In it, I see years of missed recitals, ignored achievements, and conditional love laid bare. I'm leaving, I say, standing straighter. And unlike you, Mom, I'm choosing my dreams over someone else's expectations. I walk out before they can respond, their silence following me like a shadow I'm finally ready to outrun. 3 months into college, my phone lights up with Orion's name. I almost ignore it, like I've ignored the dozen messages from Mom, but something makes me answer. They froze Grandma Alara's account, he says without preamble. Dad's contesting her competency to manage her own finances. The paintbrush slips from my fingers, splattering red across my latest piece. He can't do that. He already has. Mom's backing him up, saying Grandma's being manipulated. Orion's voice cracks. By you. I stare at the spreading red stain, watching it seep into the canvas like blood. 3 jobs barely cover my rent and supplies. Without Alara's support. Suha. A different voice now, my roommate. There's someone from the financial aid office here. The next hour blurs. My scholarship, apparently, has been withdrawn. An anonymous complaint about falsified information. The evidence is circumstantial, they say, but enough to trigger a review. Your father called. Grandma Alara tells me later that night, her voice thin through the phone. He offered to drop the competency hearing if I stop supporting your rebellion. Don't give in, I say, but my voice shakes. Please. Oh, my dear girl. She sounds tired in a way I've never heard before. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is survive to fight another day. I think of Mom's hidden portfolio, of dreams deferred and buried, of how easy it would be to follow that same path. My phone buzzes with a text from Dad. Come home. We can discuss reasonable alternatives for your future. Reasonable. Like crushing someone's dreams is ever reasonable. I look around my tiny apartment, at the half-finished paintings and past-due notices, at the evidence of my attempted escape. The red stain on my canvas has dried into something that looks like a wound. I have to go, I tell Grandma Alara. But I'm not giving up. I know, dear. Her voice strengthens slightly. Neither am I. After we hang up, I sit in the growing darkness, surrounded by the art they're trying to take away from me. Mom surrendered her dreams. Grandma Alara is being forced to watch history repeat itself. But I'm not either of them. I pick up my paintbrush again, dipping it in the deepest red I own. On a fresh canvas, I begin to paint. A garden full of roses, their thorns sharp enough to draw blood. In the corner, I sign my name, not Calloway, but something new. Something that's entirely mine. My phone keeps buzzing with their messages, but I don't answer. They want to break me, but they've forgotten something crucial. Sometimes being broken just gives you more edges to fight back with. 5 years later, I stand in Grandma Alara's garden, watching my son Zephyr play with Mom's phone. The annual Calloway Foundation Gala swirls around us, a perfect backdrop for what's about to unfold. Gamma Mari has funny names for people, Zephyr announces, scrolling through contacts. Mommy's name is Ungrateful Disappointment. The champagne flutes freeze mid-clink. Mom lunges for the phone, but she's too late. The words echo across the garden, clear as crystal. Mari, Dad warns, but I'm already moving. Ungrateful. My voice carries across the suddenly silent gathering. Is that what you call someone who spent their childhood raising your precious son while you chase social status? Serafina, this isn't the time. Mom starts, but I cut her off. When is the time? When you're not busy pretending to be the perfect family. When you're not destroying someone else's dreams like you destroyed your own. Her face goes white. Behind her, Grandma Alara emerges from the greenhouse, carrying a familiar leather portfolio. You told her? Mom whispers. No, Mari. You told her yourself, every time you tried to crush her talent like yours was crushed. Grandma Alara's voice rings with authority. But unlike you, she fought back. Dad steps forward, all business. Alara, remember our agreement. Oh, I remember everything, Thorn. She opens the portfolio, and Mom's old drawings scatter across the garden table like fallen leaves. Including how you threatened to contest my competency when I supported Sarah's dreams. Gasps ripple through the crowd of society friends and business partners. Dad's carefully crafted image cracks. But here's what you forgot, Grandma continues, pulling out another document. I had my lawyer update my will that very day. Everything goes to Sarah. The house, the foundation, the trust funds, all of it. Mom sways slightly. You can't. I already have. Grandma Alara turns to me. Someone in this family deserves to pursue their dreams without compromise. The silence stretches like a canvas waiting for the first stroke of paint. I look at my parents, really look at them, and see not the giants of my childhood, but two people trapped in their own carefully constructed cage. Keep it, I say finally. All of it. I've built my own life, my own success, without your name or your money. I pick up Zephyr, who nestles into my shoulder. That's something you never understood. Real power isn't in what you can take from others, but in what you can create for yourself. I walk away then, leaving them with their wealth and their regrets. Behind me, I hear Mom call my name, not in anger this time, but with something that sounds almost like recognition. I don't turn back. A month after the gala, I find Grandma Alara in her greenhouse, surrounded by the roses she's tended for decades. She's holding Mom's old portfolio, studying a sketch of this very garden from 30 years ago. Your mother came to see me yesterday, she says without looking up. She brought these back. My hand's still on the watering can. What did she want? To talk about regret. Grandma's fingers trace the signature on the drawing. And about how some gardens only bloom after a storm has torn everything down. Through the glass walls, I can see my own garden taking shape, the one I've started behind my gallery. Zephyr helps me plant something new every weekend, his small hands learning the difference between nurturing and controlling. I never told you, Grandma continues, but I faced a similar choice once. My family wanted me to marry someone suitable, give up my dreams of traveling. Instead, I chose myself. She smiles. That's how I met your grandfather. Why didn't you tell me before? Because some lessons can't be taught, only lived. She stands, moving to a shelf where a fresh sketchbook sits. Your mother left this too. She's starting to draw again. The revelation settles like seeds in fertile soil. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding of how patterns break, of how healing sometimes starts in the smallest spaces. I've been thinking about your offer, I say. About the inheritance. And I don't want it. But I pause, watching Zephyr chase butterflies outside. Maybe we could turn the foundation into something new. A grant program for young artists from difficult backgrounds. Give them what Mom never had, freedom to choose. Grandma's smile deepens. Already in progress. Your mother's agreed to be on the selection committee. The surprise must show on my face because she laughs, That rich, full sound that's always meant safety to me. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you, she says. It's about creating something better from the ruins. Later, as Jasper and I walk home with Zephyr between us, I spot Mom in her studio window, bent over a drawing board. She doesn't see me, but I see her, really see her, maybe for the first time. Some wounds don't heal completely. Some gardens grow wild in their broken places. But as I watch Zephyr run ahead, pointing out every flower along the way, I realize that maybe that's the point. Beauty isn't about perfection. It's about what blooms despite the damage, because of it even. I squeeze Jasper's hand and step forward into our own story, leaving the old one behind like fallen petals in Grandma's garden.
An old man who had only worked part-time jobs came to our dilapidated factory that day. Would you be willing to hire me for a daily wage of $1? I decided to find out more about his circumstances after seeing something strange in his words. I get it. For $100 per day, I'll hire you with housing and board included. I decided to take him in after hearing his story, since I couldn't bear to let him go. But when I got to the office 3 days after I began teaching him the job, I discovered that about 100 calls had been missed. What? Why are there so many calls? I could never have imagined that this old man would create such a stir in a matter of days. I'm Edward, and I'm 33 years old. I own a furniture factory in a tiny town. My father was the manufacturing manager at first. However, I was briefly placed in charge after he was admitted to the hospital a few months ago owing to illness. The factory employs 6 people in addition to my father and me. We have a caretaker who also cooks for the staff members residing in our hostel, 4 craftsmen who construct furniture, and 1 office clerk. It's a small, close-knit organization. Even now, I'm not a completely proficient craftsman. To exacerbate the situation, the competitor's store had to open directly across the street. The national furniture chain business that had opened up shop just across the street was visible through the window as I sat in my office chair. And to make matters worse, he ended up being that store's area manager. The store's area manager stopped by a few days ago to introduce himself. He was someone I knew, which surprised me. Hey, hearing that you are the manufacturing manager here astounded me. I never imagined that such a dilapidated location would still exist. Chris, well, you are the store's manager, right? I oversee an area. I'm actually quite famous now, but you wouldn't get it. I never imagined it would be someone I knew, even though I had been called ahead of time to let me know a person would be stopping by to introduce themselves. Christopher was a classmate of mine in high school. He was always picking conflicts with me, even back then, and I never thought much of him. To make matters worse, he was the kind of person who denigrated anyone he considered inferior. So, this area manager has made a special effort to visit our small, dilapidated factory. Thank you. Eager to collaborate with you. Hey, you're just as boring as ever. Actually, I'm here with a request rather than an introduction. A request? For me. His unexpected words made me raise an eyebrow. Christopher smirked as he looked around my factory with a sneering expression. Yeah, you see, it's embarrassing for our store's customers to have to look at this rundown dump. So do us all a favor and shut it down, would you? What? I was speechless at his audacity. Sure, our factory was old and worn out, and compared to his store, it might seem shabby. But to tell me to shut it down just because it was an eyesore, that was beyond insulting. Suppressing the anger bubbling inside me, I forced a smile and spoke. No. If our factory being in your customer's line of sight bothers you so much, why don't you relocate your store instead? You were the ones who moved in, after all. Oh. But if you're willing to cover all the costs for relocating and rebuilding my factory out of your own pocket, I might consider it. Christopher clearly hadn't expected me to push back. His face went blank for a moment before twisting in annoyance. But then, as if regaining his composure, he smirked and shook his head dramatically. Ah, what a shame. If you had agreed, I could have given you a job at our company. Don't come crying to me when you regret this." And with that, Christopher left the office. Excuse me. Yes, welcome. Are you here to purchase furniture? One day, as I was working on a table in the factory, a small elderly man called out to me from the entrance. Our factory specializes in furniture manufacturing and primarily sells to businesses. However, we also offer retail sales to the general public, accepting orders for both standard products and custom-made pieces. Because of this, local customers sometimes visit the factory directly. Thinking that this elderly man was also a customer, I approached him to guide him to the retail section. But suddenly, he bowed deeply. Sir, what's the matter?" I hurriedly ran over and helped him straighten up. The elderly man looked up at me, his face worn and weary, before finally speaking. Please hire me. I don't mind working for just $1 a day." $1? I was already surprised that he was looking for a job, but a daily wage of $1. That would be outright exploitation. Oh, well, the thing is, we're not really short on staff at the moment. As you can see, it's just me right now. But my father, who's currently absent, and a small team, including our office clerk, are enough to keep things running smoothly. Our employees work irregular schedules. Some only work short shifts, while others come in just 2 or 3 days a week. Depending on the time of day, I sometimes end up being the only one here. Please, I'm begging you. This is tough. Well, since you came all this way, why don't we sit down and have some tea while we talk? I led the elderly man to the office to hear him out. I hadn't intended to hire him, but something about his desperate demeanor told me there was more to his story. Here you go. Thank you very much. I brewed some tea and brought it over. The elderly man carefully cradled the teacup in his hands, took a small sip, let out a breath, and then began to explain his situation. My name is Robert. I'm 66 years old this year. Oh, I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I'm Edward, the manager of this factory. I'm 33, so exactly half your age. I mentioned my age, hoping to put Robert at ease. He gave a faint smile in response. I see. Thinking about it that way, it's as if you were born when I was your age. I'm sorry for barging in on you so suddenly when you must be busy. Not at all. But what exactly is going on? A daily wage of $1? You wouldn't even be able to afford a meal with that. I'm just grateful for the chance to work. I can't afford to have any expectations when it comes to wages. I used to run my own business, but aside from that, I've only ever worked part-time jobs. I've never even touched a computer or used Excel before. It's true that in today's world, having basic computer skills is often necessary, even for part-time jobs or office work. I see. You mentioned you ran your own business. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of work did you do? I was a temple carpenter, specializing in temple construction and restoration. But nowadays, the demand for that kind of craftsmanship has declined. My income has dropped, and I was forced out of my home due to its deteriorating condition. Now, I've been moving from hotel to hotel, trying to find work, but with only part-time job experience. No one wants to hire me. A temple carpenter. My father used to be one too. Oh, is that so? Then does that mean you're aspiring to become one as well? When I was a kid, I dreamed of it. But I realized temple carpentry isn't just about construction. It requires a deep understanding of how wood interacts, precise calculations, and even knowledge of physics and history. As a child, I admired my father and once told him I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But as I grew older and learned more about the field, I realized just how much knowledge and skill were required. Not just architectural expertise, but the ability to draft highly detailed blueprints. The sheer complexity of it all made me hesitant. That's true. If even a slight miscalculation is made, a whole structure could collapse. Though, after years of experience, some things just become second nature. Exactly. But working with furniture, creating pieces that people will use every day, has turned out to be really fulfilling for me. That said, my father and I had been discussing whether we could apply temple carpentry techniques to furniture design. We were hoping to explore that idea more concretely. Applying temple carpentry techniques to furniture. That sounds fascinating. If you don't mind me asking, what's your father's name? Knowing that Robert was familiar with temple carpentry, I found myself leaning forward, eagerly engaging in the conversation. However, he didn't seem to mind at all and listened attentively. He even seemed interested in my father, so without hesitation, I told him his name. His name is Michael. He's 54 now, and I think he worked as a temple carpenter until I was a child. So that would have been about 20 years ago. Michael, I see. And is he working here with you now? You mentioned earlier that he wasn't present today. Robert slightly widened his eyes as he repeated my father's name, then glanced around the factory as if deep in thought before asking. Actually, last month, he suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. The surgery was successful, but he hasn't regained consciousness yet. That's why I'm managing the factory for now. I see. That must be very difficult for you. I sincerely hope he makes a full recovery. Robert's words were the kind of considerate remarks people usually offer in such situations, but his expression conveyed genuine concern for my father. His tone was like that of an old friend offering support, and it filled me with a quiet warmth. Thank you. I'm sure my father would appreciate that. Now, about the job. I'm sorry, but I can't hire you for a daily wage of $1. Straightening my posture, I looked Robert in the eye and got to the point. I had never planned on hiring him, at least not until I heard his story. I see. No, I understand. I'm sorry for making such an unreasonable request. Well, in that case, how about this? Room and board included, with a daily wage of $100. Pa. Robert, who had looked disappointed and cast his eyes downward, suddenly lifted his head in surprise, his mouth slightly open. Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but chuckle. Ah, sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. But really, hiring someone with your level of experience in temple carpentry for $1 a day, that would definitely get me sued. I can't afford to go any higher, but if you're willing, I'd love to have you here. To be honest, I was also hoping he could share some insights on incorporating temple carpentry techniques into furniture. But that was a conversation for another time. Ah, thank you so much. I truly appreciate this opportunity. Robert bowed deeply, expressing his gratitude. I pretended not to notice the tears welling up in the corners of his eyes. Does this look about right? Yes. As expected. With your experience as a temple carpenter, you have a natural talent for furniture making. You're far from a beginner, and your craftsmanship is at an expert level. The next day, I began teaching Robert how to make furniture. His main role would be in production at the factory, and to my surprise, he picked things up incredibly fast. So much so that it felt like explaining one thing to him led him to understand 10 more on his own. Despite my initial concerns about his age and lack of formal experience outside carpentry and part-time jobs, it was clear that he would have no trouble adjusting. Robert, make sure you take breaks. Okay. Here, have some tea. When I went on my break, I found Robert diligently shaping a table. I couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. He reminded me so much of my father. I quietly approached him and handed him a cold cup of tea, encouraging him to take a rest. Once I start working, I get carried away. Now I understand what you meant when you said furniture making was fun. There's something different about crafting furniture, knowing that someone will actually use it, compared to building a house. His face lit up as he spoke, clearly enjoying himself. When I introduced him to the dormitory, the other employees, likely intrigued by his background as a temple carpenter, welcomed him warmly. From what I heard, they stayed up late chatting last night. I think this job suits me well, and everyone here has been so kind to an elderly man like me. I'm really grateful to be working here. I'm glad to hear that. We're counting on your skills, so please take care of yourself and don't overwork. Yes, thank you. Oh, by the way, would it be all right if I made a few small items over the weekend? Just using scrap wood, of course. Of course, that's fine. While we mainly take custom orders, we also sell unique pieces crafted by our craftsmen to the local community. Feel free to use any materials you'd like, though let me know if you need anything from the reserve stock for larger or special order items. Also, make sure to take proper breaks, all right. I handed him a materials list and a pricing guide for the items we typically sell. As long as the materials were of the same quality and quantity, we had a fixed price system for selling the pieces, except in special cases. I just find this work so enjoyable, so I can't seem to sit still. But don't worry, I'll be sure to rest properly. Feeling reassured by his response, I had no way of predicting the chaos that Robert was about to unleash. 3 days had passed since I hired Robert, and the weekend arrived. Since our factory was closed on weekends, I spent my time visiting my father in the hospital and taking care of personal matters. The employees living in the dormitory spent their time in various ways, some staying in their rooms while others went out. Ah, Edward. Just in time. The voicemail is completely full. Good morning. Wait, what do you mean, completely full? When I arrived at the office on Monday morning, our office clerk greeted me with a troubled expression. Apparently, nearly 100 voicemails had been left over the weekend. All of them furniture orders. Furniture orders? Sure, we get phone orders sometimes, but why the sudden surge? We usually receive only a few orders per week, with some days having none at all. Suddenly getting 100 orders was completely unheard of. Good morning. Is something the matter? Ah, good morning, Robert. It seems we received nearly 100 furniture orders over the weekend, but we have no idea why. Oh, is that so? That's wonderful. I'm glad my efforts paid off. His words left me stunned. Wait, do you know something about this? Yes. Over the weekend, I had some free time, so I made a few pieces of furniture. Oh, right. You did mention that. I recalled our conversation before the weekend and nodded. Yes, and I was having such a good time that I ended up making quite a few pieces. Then a woman happened to stop by and saw them. Before I knew it, more and more people started gathering. The pieces I made sold out almost immediately, but the ladies who had gathered were quite persistent. So I told them that if they were interested, we could take custom orders, which led to this flood of calls. Exactly. Here, this is the total sales amount from the weekend. I also took photos of the items I made so you can review them. I looked at the sales report and was taken aback by the staggering amount. As I flipped through the photos, I could see the masterful craftsmanship behind each piece. It was evident just how meticulous Robert had been in his work. Among the voicemails were also several thank you messages from customers who had purchased his pieces. It was clear that Robert's work had been an overwhelming success. Robert, who exactly are you? I'm nothing special. As I mentioned, I used to run my own business, but now I'm just an old carpenter. However, I actually worked alongside your father back in our temple carpentry days. What? I couldn't help but raise my voice in shock at his unexpected revelation. Hearing the commotion, the office clerk and a few craftsmen who had already started their shifts gathered around, curious about what was happening. Even after your father left temple carpentry and started this factory, we kept in touch, updating each other on our lives. But when I had to close my shop, things got hectic, and I never got around to contacting him. Wait, are you my father's mentor? He used to talk about his temple carpentry days when he was drinking, how he was rigorously trained, especially in how to handle materials and tools. At my words, the craftsmen around us started murmuring in surprise. Wait, you mean that mentor? The infamous demon master. The one who would hit you the second you used the wrong tool. No way. That guy actually existed. The legendary demon carpenter. But now that I think about it, Robert's craftsmanship is incredibly precise. Demon. Oh, I'm sorry. My father would sometimes let it slip after a few drinks, but he always spoke of you with respect, saying he could never surpass you. Hearing the craftsman's words, Robert muttered something in a low voice, and I quickly stepped in to smooth things over. The craftsman, realizing his mistake, hurriedly covered his mouth. Hey, it's fine. He called me a demon to my face all the time. It's true, though. I was the one who drilled the fundamentals of temple carpentry into your father. So, it really was you? Why didn't you say anything earlier? I wasn't trying to hide it, but you decided to hire me without knowing I had any connection to your father. That made me so happy that I just forgot to mention it. Besides, if you had known your father called me a demon, you might have kicked me out after hiring me, no? He grinned mischievously, and I couldn't help but laugh along with the other craftsmen. Later, Robert told me that when he first heard my name, he had a hunch that I might be Michael's son. He only became certain when I mentioned my father's name. Robert, if you don't mind, would you teach me your techniques? I know temple carpentry and furniture making are different in some ways, but I still have so much to learn. I feel ashamed that I can barely keep this factory running despite all my father's efforts. I want to create furniture that truly makes people happy. Are you sure? Your father probably told you that I can be very strict. I'm ready for that. Also, please don't feel like you need to speak so formally with me. Haha, that's a relief. I was never good at speaking formally. I'll take you up on that. Well then, let's aim to surprise Michael with how much you've improved by the time he wakes up. Yes, thank you. From that point on, I spent my working hours fully dedicated to learning from Robert, absorbing his techniques through trial and error. I worked on incorporating temple carpentry knowledge and skills into furniture making. Robert, about this joint here. The pressure will apply here, so you should adjust the angle slightly. I see. It wasn't just me, soon. The other craftsmen also started learning from Robert. Each of them took pride in their work, but that didn't stop them from seeking out his expertise. Since he had been my father's mentor, they had no hesitation in learning from him as well. As we integrated his teachings into our work, our furniture sales steadily grew. One day, while a customer was browsing our showroom, they suddenly asked, "Edward, is your factory going to be part of the upcoming furniture exhibition?" Furniture exhibition. Yes, a lot of furniture companies are participating, and the store across the street is too. I saw a flyer at their entrance. They handed me the flyer, which had no special participation requirements. It looked like we were still within the application deadline. Oh, an industry-wide exhibition. There won't just be regular customers, but industry professionals and even wealthy buyers attending. I think your factory should participate. The customer handed me the flyer before leaving. Robert and I exchanged glances, then both looked back at the flyer. If we can make an impression at this event, we could expand our business even further, I said. Even if other companies showcase amazing pieces and our furniture doesn't stand out, it would still be a valuable learning experience. I don't see any real downside to joining. After discussing it with the other employees, I made the decision to participate. From that day on, Robert and I started brainstorming what kind of furniture we should showcase. After much trial and error, we decided to craft a kitchen cabinet infused with temple carpentry techniques. It's a common household item, but as part of the interior, it plays a significant role in shaping the overall impression of the kitchen. The wooden parts will be constructed using temple carpentry techniques, but I also want to put some thought into the glass doors, I said. Since we're at it, how about adding some intricate carvings to the frame? To allow Robert and me to focus on crafting the piece, The other craftsmen took on all the regular orders. Grateful for their cooperation, Robert and I worked tirelessly, going back and forth over every detail. One day, as we took a break and drank tea near the factory entrance, Christopher approached with a sour expression. I quickly informed Robert that Christopher was the manager of the furniture chain store across the street and also an old classmate of mine. "I heard you're entering the exhibition," he sneered. "You really don't know your place, do you?" "Yeah, and it's not like I need your permission. Whether we participate or not is our decision." As soon as I responded, Christopher's face twisted with anger. He pointed at me, raising his voice. "Just seeing you around pisses me off. Stay out of the exhibition. If you show up, I'll make sure you regret it." As soon as he finished speaking, he stormed off. I watched him leave with a shallow sigh. Seriously, can't he just leave me alone for once? "He seems to have quite the grudge against you," Robert muttered. "A person that tense could never craft good furniture. But are you sure everything's fine? He looked like he was up to no good." I already submitted our application, and there's no way I'm backing out now after hearing him say that. More importantly, I can't let this opportunity to showcase the cabinet Robert and I may go to waste. The day before the exhibition, we successfully transported our completed cabinet to the venue. Until the exhibition opened, the venue was restricted to authorized personnel only, and the management was responsible for securely storing all exhibits. Then the big day arrived. I entered the venue after being seen off by Robert and the other employees. As I made my way toward our display area, I noticed several staff members moving around in a hurry. Did something happen? Feeling a sense of unease, I continued toward our section. When I arrived, I saw a few event staff and some craftsmen gathered around. "Excuse me, is something wrong with our piece?" What on earth? The upper part of the cabinet had been smashed, as if struck by an axe or some heavy tool. Broken glass from the shattered doors was scattered across the floor. "We sincerely apologize," one of the event staff said. "We discovered it in this condition when we arrived this morning." The storage area was securely locked, but it seems someone forcibly broke the lock. "We're currently reviewing the security footage." The event staff's explanation barely registered. The thought of who could have done this filled my mind. But if I didn't fix it, it would be an insult to Robert, who had worked so hard alongside me. I also noticed attendees already peering in from the entrance, waiting for the exhibition to open. If I withdrew now, the only impression left would be that my furniture was destroyed. That would be unacceptable. "I understand. Please continue your investigation. We trusted the venue security when we brought our piece here, so this is extremely disappointing. However, since we don't have time to waste, may I repair it here?" Fortunately, each exhibitor had a generous amount of space allocated, plus I had brought some basic tools just in case. "Wait here. Of course, you're free to, but the damage is quite severe. Can it even be fixed?" "I won't be able to restore it to its original state, but this piece was built using temple carpentry techniques. That means no nails or screws. Everything is fitted together. Since there's no adhesive, I can dismantle and rebuild it," I explained while placing the materials down and beginning to disassemble the damaged joints. Although I couldn't rebuild the cabinet to its full height, I transformed it into a low chest about 1/3 of its original size. Fortunately, the intricate carvings Robert and I had worked on were intact. I removed the shattered glass and repurposed the carved frames as decorative panels. "That's incredible. You rebuilt it so quickly." "Somehow, I made it in time." "Could you please dispose of the broken parts?" "Of course." As the exhibition began, a wave of visitors flooded in. Among them were families, groups of friends, industry professionals, and even what appeared to be high-profile clients. I barely had time to process my accomplishment of rebuilding the piece before shifting into customer service mode. "This low chest is amazing. They say it's built using temple carpentry techniques without any metal fittings." Visitors carefully examined the piece I had just reconstructed. At this exhibition, direct sales weren't allowed, so everything was displayed as a sample, with orders taken for future production. Wow. Temple carpentry. That's the method used to construct shrines and temples, right? Wait, isn't this the cabinet that was destroyed earlier? How did they remake it this quickly? The temple carpentry techniques and the fact that I had quickly rebuilt the piece became a major talking point, leading to a significant number of orders. One by one, I thanked each customer and handed out flyers promoting direct sales at our factory. And with that, the exhibition came to a successful close. However, just as I was about to leave, I was called into the event office. The organizers had identified the person responsible for destroying my furniture. This dies. Yes, the responsible party has been identified as a representative from this company. We are currently questioning him in a separate room. Would you like to file a police report? The person who had destroyed our exhibition piece was none other than my former classmate, Christopher. I finally understood what he had meant before the exhibition, but the sheer audacity of his actions filled me with rage. However, if I filed a report, it would cast a shadow over the low chest Robert had built and I had repaired. The customers had loved it, and I didn't want to taint its success. No. Since we were able to recover from this, I won't be filing a report. However, letting this slide completely could affect future exhibitions. Could you at least issue a formal warning from the organizers? Of course. It is absolutely unacceptable for a craftsman to destroy another's work out of spite. We will ensure stricter security measures to prevent such incidents in the future. Thank you. I appreciate it. A few days later, a formal letter of apology arrived from Christopher's company. It also briefly stated that Christopher had been fired. The ending was almost too anticlimactic. Somehow, word got out on social media that an employee from that company was responsible for the incident. As the news spread, their sales plummeted, and a few months later, the store across the street was forced to shut down and withdraw from the area. You actually managed to turn that cabinet into this low chest. Your skills might surpass Michael's. You're not half-trained anymore. You're fully capable. After returning to the factory with the exhibition furniture, Robert and the employees welcomed me back. As I explained the incident at the venue, Robert praised me, while the employees loudly voiced their anger toward Christopher. That guy was your classmate, Edward. What a bastard. Edward and Robert put so much effort into that piece. The low chest is wonderful, but that cabinet would have been a hit too. As I reassured my employees, I couldn't help but smile, feeling genuinely happy. Haha, sorry for making you all worry. But thanks to the exhibition, we got tons of orders. It looks like we'll be even busier, so I'm counting on all of you. The next day, customers who had visited the exhibition started coming to the factory, and phone inquiries flooded in. Robert even started helping answer calls during his breaks. At this rate, I was worried we'd turn into a sweatshop with no breaks. Maybe it's time to hire another office clerk. Just as I was considering this, the office clerk called out to me. Edward, there's a call from the hospital. It's about your father. What? Thanks. I'll take it. A call from the hospital. Did something happen to my father? Pushing down my anxiety, I answered the phone. This is Edward speaking. Yes. What? My father? He's awake? I understand. I'll be there right away. Hearing my conversation, the expressions of the office clerk, the other employees, and Robert changed from concern to relief. That call just now. My father woke up. He's fully conscious and able to speak. He'll need time to regain his strength and go through rehabilitation, but they said there's no longer any danger. At my words, the entire office erupted in excitement. Without wasting a moment, I took Robert with me to the hospital. Dad. Edward, I must have worried you for a long time. How's the factory? When we arrived at his hospital room, I had Robert wait outside for a moment while I entered first. My father looked frail, but his eyes still held the sharpness of the factory manager he once was. Me. I've been managing somehow. In fact, I'm thinking of hiring more employees and even expanding the factory a little. Dad. What? Expanding the factory. But isn't the current team enough? Did someone quit? Hearing my words, my father looked bewildered, then furrowed his brows with concern. Dad? No, that's not it. We've just been really busy. Actually, we had a former temple carpenter join us, and he's been teaching me and the others new techniques. Thanks to that, our furniture sales have skyrocketed. Me? A temple carpenter. Are you sure he's the real deal? There are plenty of frauds who claim to be experts. Unaware of the temple carpenter's true identity, my father openly expressed his skepticism and questioned me. Perhaps, as a former temple carpenter himself, he didn't like the idea of me and the other craftsmen learning from someone else. Me? Far from a fraud. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been able to keep the factory running while you were gone. Of course, the team's support was invaluable too, but he taught me so much. Dad, Edward, didn't you say you wanted to learn the techniques I used and apply them to furniture making? And now you're just trusting some random so-called temple carpenter. Me. Well, actually, I think his techniques are the same as yours. Are you that worried about him? Dad, of course I am. Not just because of you. You said the other craftsmen trust him too. It seemed like his feelings were half worry and half jealousy. I was thrilled that my father had woken up, and I also wanted to surprise him. But if I teased him too much, I might end up worsening his condition. Me. So, what do you think about that, Robert? Robert. How sad. I never thought my very first apprentice would call me a fraud. Dad. What? Why is the demon here? Me. You call him demon. Dad. No. Realizing what he had just let slip, my father quickly covered his mouth. Dad. Ahem. What I meant was, why is Robert here? Robert. Well, I happened to cross paths with Edward, and he hired me. Since I had the opportunity, I took him in as my apprentice. I must say, his learning speed is faster than yours ever was. Dad. Of course, it is. He's my son, after all. Before I could feel too awkward being talked about like that, I forcefully brought the conversation back on track. Me. So, as Robert was working at our factory, I eventually found out he was your mentor. That's when I asked him to teach me his techniques. Dad. I see. That explains why his style is similar to mine. After all, we had the same teacher. You really worked hard, didn't you, Edward? I'm sorry for leaving everything on your shoulders for so long. Me. It's okay, Dad. I'm just glad you're awake. I heard you'll need rehab for a while, but depending on your progress, you might be able to leave the hospital sooner than expected. When you're back, I want you to check out my furniture. Dad, I'd love to. While you're at it, bring me some small pieces of wood I can work on for rehab. My hands must be getting rusty. Me. Dad, rehab is supposed to be for daily activities, not carpentry. Please just focus on resting. Robert? Working on small pieces should be fine. If you don't bring him anything, he might start wandering the hospital fixing shelves instead. Me. Oh no. I could easily picture it happening, and I instinctively put my hand to my forehead. I should probably check with the doctor about this. A few months later, after completing his rehab, my father returned to the factory, bringing even more momentum to our growing business. With stable orders coming in, we sat down with both my father and Robert to discuss expanding the workforce and rebuilding the factory. Me. Well, things are running smoothly for now, so we could wait until next month to start hiring. Robert. Yeah, that sounds good. I wonder how many positions we should open. A few days later, we received an inquiry about an interview. Someone wanted to feature us as unique furniture craftsmen who fully incorporated temple carpentry techniques. Then, following the media coverage, our orders skyrocketed. And 1 month later, we scrambled to hire more workers immediately. It seemed that the future of this factory was far brighter than I had ever imagined.
My name is Jonathan Wright. I've always been someone who worked hard, kept my head down, and believed that eventually, the right thing would happen. I was the kind of guy who would get things done quietly in the background, while others enjoyed the spotlight. I didn't mind it. I liked the idea of my work speaking for itself, even if it meant that I didn't always get the recognition I deserved. I graduated from university with a business degree, filled with ambition, eager to prove myself. I joined a mid-sized firm called Belmore Enterprises, a company with a good reputation, but that was nowhere near as established as the big players in the industry. Still, I saw potential. I was going to work my way up, no matter the obstacles. For the first few months, everything was great. I worked directly under my boss, Alan Foster, the company's COO. Alan was smart, quick-witted, and had a reputation for being ruthless in the corporate world. He was the type of person who believed that success came from stepping on anyone who got in your way, even if it meant leaving others in the dust. But at the time, I didn't see it. I respected him, saw him as a mentor even. That was my mistake. One afternoon, a week before the company's biggest pitch of the year, I had an idea. The kind of idea that could change everything for Belmore Enterprises. It was simple, really. A creative solution that could streamline our processes and give us an edge over our competition. I presented it to Alan, explaining how this new approach could boost our efficiency and impress the client we were preparing for. He was intrigued, at least that's what I thought. He told me to fine-tune the proposal, but I noticed a strange glimmer in his eyes. Something was off, but I brushed it aside. I was eager to contribute, to make my mark. So, I worked tirelessly, refining my idea, building a presentation that would blow the client away. The day before the pitch, Alan called me into his office. His demeanor was casual, almost too casual. He told me that he'd decided to go in a different direction with the proposal, but that he'd take my suggestions into account. I couldn't help but feel uneasy. He didn't seem particularly interested in my work anymore, but I didn't press it. I should have. The next morning, I watched as Alan took the stage to present the pitch to our largest client yet, one that could elevate Belmore Enterprises to a level of success we had only dreamed of. As he began, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The slides that he was presenting, the exact ones I had worked on, were now accompanied by his words, his credit, his name. He didn't mention me. Not once. I sat in the back of the room, feeling my stomach twist. Every word he spoke felt like a slap in the face. He was taking full credit for my work. This wasn't the first time I had been in a situation where I was overlooked, but this felt different. This felt like betrayal. I had poured my heart into that idea, and now it was being stolen right in front of me, and no one, least of all Alan, seemed to care. When the presentation ended, Alan stood tall, exuding the kind of confidence that made everyone in the room believe his words were gospel. The client was impressed, and I knew the deal was as good as done. But something gnawed at me. Alan had just claimed the biggest success of his career without acknowledging the effort of the person who had truly put in the work. As the meeting broke up, Alan gave me a brief, dismissive nod as if to say, "Good job, kid." That was all. No recognition. No gratitude. Nothing. I was left standing in the shadows, my work reduced to nothing more than a tool for his success. I spent the next few days in a daze, feeling the sting of betrayal deeper with each passing hour. But the worst was yet to come. The following Friday, Alan called me into his office. I tried to remain composed, hoping that maybe he'd realize the injustice he'd done and offer some sort of apology or at least an acknowledgement. Instead, he sat me down and, without so much as a preamble, dropped the bombshell. "Jonathan," he began, looking at me with an unsettling calmness, "I'm going to have to let you go." I blinked, taken aback. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Let me go? This wasn't happening. What? But he cut me off with a wave of his hand. This is how the real world works. You've been underperforming, and frankly, you're not cutting it anymore. The company needs people who can push boundaries, not just sit on the sidelines. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. He was firing me, but not just firing me. He was doing it with such coldness, without any explanation or reason that made sense. My heart pounded in my chest as the reality of the situation began to settle in. The truth was undeniable. Alan was getting rid of me because I had become a threat to his own success. I had done the work, but he wanted to take all the credit. And now, he was discarding me like a broken tool once he had used me up. I was numb as I gathered my things, too shocked to even muster up the anger that was slowly building within me. I left Alan's office and walked out of Belmore Enterprises, my head spinning, my future uncertain. But that night, something shifted inside me. I couldn't just let this go. I had been wronged, and not just by Alan, but by the entire system that allowed someone like him to get away with this kind of behavior. I couldn't just walk away from my career, my ideas, my future. I had to make things right. The following morning, I received a call that would set the course for the rest of my life. It was the client, the one we had just secured the deal with, the one who had been so impressed with Alan's presentation. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but I could tell something was off. "Mr. Wright," the voice asked, "we regret to inform you that we are canceling our contract with Belmore Enterprises." My stomach dropped. What? What? I stammered, struggling to make sense of what was happening. "We've decided to go in a different direction," the voice said curtly. "Thank you for your time, but we no longer require your services." The line went dead before I could ask another question. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Our biggest contract, the one Alan had been riding high on, had just been canceled. And in that moment, I knew what had happened. Alan's smug confidence, his arrogance, had led him to believe he could ride out this deal without truly understanding the foundation it was built on. The idea that had made the deal possible was mine. His theft of my work, my brilliance, had now led to the company's downfall. I didn't waste a second. I picked up my phone and called Alan. I knew he'd be panicking. I could almost hear his voice in my head, desperate to smooth things over with the client. He would be begging for their forgiveness, trying to salvage whatever he could. But when he picked up the phone, I didn't say a word. Instead, I simply spoke one sentence, the one that would change everything. "You're speaking with the new CEO." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Alan's breath caught. He didn't know how to respond. "Jonathan, what? What are you talking about?" he stammered, clearly rattled. "I've just secured the future of this company," I said, my voice calm, controlled. "And now, I'm in charge. It's over, Alan. Your game is up." The next few days were a whirlwind. I had no idea how I was going to pull this off, but the idea of leaving everything to Alan's hands, his deceit, his greed, his careless arrogance, was no longer an option. I had been wronged, and now it was time to turn the tables. But there was no way to do this without a strategy. After that call with Alan, I went straight to work. The first thing I did was contact the board members. To my surprise, most of them had been on the fence about Alan for months. They had never been completely comfortable with his approach, but he had delivered results, at least until now. The cancellation of our biggest contract had sent ripples through the company, and people were starting to doubt his leadership. It wasn't just the client. It was his general mismanagement that had started to tarnish Belmore's reputation. I was at a crossroads. As I stood in front of the board, I had no formal position to back me. I wasn't a senior executive. I wasn't someone they had placed any particular trust in. But I had something that Alan didn't: the truth. I started by presenting the real story, the idea that had been stolen from me, the way Alan had claimed credit for my work, and how, when everything was on the line, he had made reckless decisions that cost us the biggest contract we had ever landed. Their faces were hard to read, but I could tell they were listening. They had their doubts about Alan, and I could sense their desperation to salvage the company's future. I didn't give them a sob story or beg for sympathy. I laid out the facts. I showed them the potential of my idea and how, with proper leadership, Belmore could recover and even thrive. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, one of the board members, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah, leaned forward. "Jonathan," she said, her tone calculated but respectful, "I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You've presented a compelling case, and frankly, you're right. Alan has lost his way. But what makes you think you can lead this company? What makes you think you can take over now?" I paused. This was the moment that could either make or break me. I had no answer for her beyond the truth. I don't think I can do it, I said slowly, meeting her gaze. I know I can. There was something in my voice, a quiet determination, that seemed to shift the mood in the room. Sarah exchanged a look with another board member, and before I knew it, they were voting. The result wasn't even close. I had the votes. Alan's position as COO was revoked, effective immediately. I was now in charge of the company I had once thought was just a stepping stone on my career path. The power, the weight of responsibility, hit me like a freight train. But it wasn't fear that I felt. It was a sense of resolve. I had been underestimated, overlooked, and betrayed. But now I had control. I called a company-wide meeting for the following morning. The employees, many of whom had watched Alan rise to power, were shocked when I announced that I had taken over as CEO. The air was thick with disbelief and skepticism. People didn't know what to expect from me, but they were eager for change. The truth about Alan's behavior was starting to surface, and the mood was shifting in the office. I was quick to assure them that Belmore Enterprises wasn't going to crumble, that we were going to move forward with a new direction. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoring the integrity and success that Alan had so carelessly dismantled. But things were more complicated than I had anticipated. Within hours, Alan was in my office. He was furious, his face red with anger. He slammed the door behind him, and I could feel the heat radiating off him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he shouted. "This is my company. I built it. You're nothing but a kid who thought he could take my place." I remained calm. I had to. The anger inside me was bubbling up, but I knew I couldn't afford to lose control. "It's not your company, Alan. It never was. You built it on the backs of others, on my back. You stole from people who worked hard, and now it's coming back to bite you. You think you're better than me?" Alan spat, stepping forward. "You think they'll follow you? You're a nobody." I stood up slowly, meeting his gaze with the kind of calm confidence I hadn't known I was capable of. "I don't think I'm better than you, Alan. I know I am." He scoffed, backing away as if my words had stung more than he cared to admit. "You'll regret this. You have no idea what you're up against. I built this place from the ground up, and you destroyed it." I replied, my voice low but steady. "You couldn't see what was right in front of you." Alan's face twisted with fury, but there was something else there too, a flicker of doubt, a recognition that he was losing control. It wasn't just his career at stake anymore, it was his pride. But I didn't care. He had taken everything from me, and now it was time to take back what was rightfully mine. I didn't expect Alan to leave quietly, but I didn't expect him to resort to sabotage either. The days after I took over as CEO were filled with constant pressure. Every decision felt heavy, as though the fate of the company hung in the balance with each move I made. The board had placed their trust in me, and now it was my responsibility to rebuild Belmore Enterprises. But it wasn't just the company I had to worry about. Alan was out for blood, and I could feel his shadow looming over every step I took. It didn't take long before I realized just how far Alan was willing to go to make me fail. He had always been the kind of person who played dirty, and now that he was out of the picture, I saw just how deep his treachery ran. The first signs of sabotage came in the form of missing documents. Contracts that I needed to review for upcoming deals mysteriously disappeared from the office. My emails were hacked, confidential information leaked, and every time I turned around, something crucial had gone awry. I tried to remain composed, but I could feel the walls closing in. Alan was doing everything he could to sabotage me from the inside, and it was working. I didn't need to be told twice. I knew it was him. Alan had left behind a network of loyalists within the company, people who were still under his influence, and he had the means to cripple Belmore from the outside. But I couldn't let him win. I wasn't going to let him destroy everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for. One evening, I was at the office late, poring over the missing contracts when I received a call. It was from Sarah, the board member who had been my biggest supporter in taking over the company. "Jonathan," her voice was tight with urgency. "There's something you need to know." I immediately felt my heart rate spike. "What is it?" "I just got off the phone with one of our clients. They've received an anonymous email warning them about Belmore's internal corruption and suggesting they should pull out of their deal with us." My stomach churned. "No," I whispered. "This has to be Alan. He's trying to tank us." Sarah paused. "I'm afraid it's more than that. I've been digging into his finances. After everything that's happened, I thought it might be useful to understand just how far gone things really are with him. And, Jonathan, there's something you need to see. I could feel the ground beneath me shift. What is it, Sarah? Alan has been funneling company funds into his own private accounts. For years, he's been slowly bleeding Belmore dry, hiding it under the radar. He's been planning to take the company down from the inside, but it seems he got impatient. He's speeding up the process. I was silent for a moment, the weight of her words crashing down on me. It wasn't just a matter of professional rivalry. It was financial theft, sabotage, and a calculated betrayal. Alan wasn't just trying to undermine me personally. He was attempting to destroy everything we had worked for, to wipe out the company he had so callously manipulated. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I took a deep breath. We need to act fast, I said, my voice steady. This is bigger than we thought. Sarah agreed. We began to gather evidence of Alan's crimes, but I knew we couldn't just let him get away with it. We had to hit him where it hurt, hard. But I also knew that confronting him head-on would be dangerous. He had nothing left to lose, and if he was pushed into a corner, he would fight back with everything he had. The decision was made. I would confront Alan one last time. The following day, I arranged to meet him in a neutral location, away from the prying eyes of the office. I didn't want to make this public yet, not until I had everything in place. When I walked into the dimly lit cafe, Alan was already seated, his back turned to me. He looked smaller now, more defeated. The arrogance that once exuded from him had faded, replaced by something darker, a desperation that I could feel from across the room. I took a seat across from him without a word. We both stared at each other for a moment, the silence hanging heavily between us. Finally, Alan broke it, his voice low. You think you've won, don't you? This is just the beginning, Jonathan. You can't handle this company. You'll fall just like I did. I didn't answer him immediately. Instead, I pulled out a folder from my briefcase and placed it on the table. I have everything, Alan. The financial records, the emails, the contracts you've siphoned off to your personal accounts. I have it all. His eyes flickered with recognition, but he quickly masked it with a smirk. You think you can bring me down with paperwork? You have no idea who you're dealing with. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And that's why I'm going to make sure you never hurt anyone again. He snorted. You're just a kid, Jonathan. You don't know what it takes to run a company. You don't know how to play the game. I let out a soft laugh. No, Alan. You don't know how to play the game. You played it by your own rules, and now you're paying the price. Alan's face darkened, his jaw tightening. You're making a mistake. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I stood up, my resolve firm. No, Alan. You've made the mistake, and I'm going to make sure it's the last one you ever make. I walked out of the cafe, leaving Alan behind. But I knew that this wasn't the end. Not yet. He wasn't done fighting, and neither was I. The battle for Belmore Enterprises was far from over, but I had one thing he didn't: control. I had the power to rebuild, to restore the integrity of the company, and to take down the man who thought he could destroy it all. The following days felt like a battle of attrition, each moment more tense than the last. The pressure was mounting on all sides. Alan's sabotage was becoming more blatant, and the board members were starting to grow wary. I could see it in their eyes. They were waiting for me to fail. For the past few years, Alan had been the face of Belmore Enterprises, the man who had always found a way out of tight situations. I wasn't him. I didn't have his network, his charisma, or the same ruthless instincts. But what I had, what I could rely on, was something far more valuable: integrity. The moment I had left the cafe, I knew I had to act fast. I immediately contacted the legal team and arranged for an official audit of Belmore Enterprises. The documents I had on Alan were damning, but I knew that bringing those to light without proper legal backing would only make me look like I was grasping at straws. If I wanted to take him down for good, I needed proof that couldn't be ignored. It was a grueling process, but within days, we had everything we needed. The forensic audit revealed millions of dollars in misappropriated funds, bogus accounts opened under fake names, and contracts that had been redirected to Alan's private ventures. It was the smoking gun I had been searching for. I met with Sarah late one evening to discuss the next steps. We have the evidence now, Jonathan. We can't let him get away with this. We need to present this to the board, and we need to do it before he can make another move. I nodded. I agree, but we can't rush into it. I need to get ahead of him. I know he's already plotting his next move. Are you ready? She asked. her voice tinged with both caution and hope. You're not just fighting for the company anymore. You're fighting for your future, for your reputation. This is your shot to show them what you're really made of. I looked down at the papers in front of me, the weight of the moment pressing on me. This wasn't just about Belmore anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, taking back control from a man who had tried to destroy me and everyone around me. I'm ready, I said firmly. The next morning, I called a board meeting. The room was heavy with tension, the members filing in one by one. Alan was nowhere to be seen. It was clear that he wasn't going to show up for the fight. He knew he was losing. His bravado had faltered, and now he was hiding in the shadows, too scared to face the consequences of his actions. As I stepped up to the front of the room, I could feel all eyes on me. There was no turning back now. I had to show them that I wasn't just some lucky kid who had been handed the reins. I had to show them that I was the leader Belmore needed, the one who could restore it to its former glory and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice calm but unwavering. I've called this meeting today not just to report the state of Belmore Enterprises, but to address the real issue at hand, the issue that has been plaguing this company for far too long. A toxic culture that starts at the top, with someone who has stolen, manipulated, and lied to get ahead. That person is Alan. A murmur ran through the room. The board members shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging furtive glances. I knew they were aware of the rumors surrounding Alan, but hearing it out in the open was another thing entirely. I have here the results of a full forensic audit of our finances. I continued, holding up the folder. The evidence speaks for itself. Alan has been siphoning company funds into his own accounts for years. He's taken advantage of every opportunity to line his pockets while leaving this company on the brink of collapse. And now, he's trying to sabotage the very people who could save it. I laid out the documents, the proof of his embezzlement, the hidden accounts, the deals he had made under the table, and the damage he had caused. The room was silent, the reality of it all sinking in. I could see the shock on their faces. Some of them were angry, others were afraid, but none of them could deny the truth. Finally, I turned to Sarah. I'm asking for your support in removing Alan from any further involvement with this company. We can no longer afford to let him stay in power, to continue to sabotage our efforts. If we want to rebuild Belmore, we need to act now. Sarah, who had been quiet until then, nodded firmly. I second that motion, she said. One by one, the other board members followed suit, their votes making it official. Alan was out. The company was now in my hands, and the road ahead would be a difficult one, but I was determined to take it. The fallout wasn't immediate. Alan fought back, of course. He had his lawyers, and he wasn't about to go down without a fight. But it didn't matter. I had the truth on my side, and the board was firmly behind me. Alan's attempts to destabilize Belmore only made his eventual downfall more inevitable. In the following weeks, I worked tirelessly to regain the trust of the employees, the clients, and the shareholders. It wasn't easy. Many were still hesitant, still scarred by the years of Alan's mismanagement. But I made it my mission to show them that things had changed, that Belmore could be something better. Slowly, I began to rebuild the company's reputation, making strategic decisions that restored our standing in the industry. But more than that, I found that the people around me started to believe in me. They saw that I was committed to their success, to their growth, and to the integrity of the company. It wasn't just about the numbers anymore. It was about trust, and I had earned theirs. The morning the news broke about Alan's arrest for embezzlement, I felt a strange mix of relief and closure. The company was moving forward, and I was finally in control of my own fate. Alan had underestimated me, thinking that his manipulations would be enough to break me. But in the end, it was his own downfall that paved the way for my rise. As I sat in my new office, overlooking the skyline, I realized that the fight for Belmore had never been just about business. It had been about something deeper, about proving to myself that I could rise above the challenges, that I could turn the tables on those who tried to bring me down, and that I was capable of leading, not just surviving. And as for Alan, well, he was no longer a threat. But I had learned something valuable through it all. In the real world, it's not just about winning the fight. It's about knowing how to fight, knowing when to take control, and knowing that the true victory comes from never giving up, even when everything seems lost. What took place? Although my daughter Isabella recently began working at her ideal firm, she hasn't been acting like herself lately. Every time I inquire, she simply responds, "It's nothing." However, she returned home only half an hour after leaving today, and there was a ridiculous letter on her back. I made the decision to visit her as soon as I saw it. Normally, I'm cool and collected, but this time, I couldn't help myself. As a result, I was up against Samuel, the exact person who had hurt Isabella so much. Thomas is my name. Isabella joined me in celebrating my recent 51st birthday. Isabella was born the year after my wife and I were married 30 years ago. Unfortunately, my wife died shortly after giving birth. I couldn't raise a child by myself at the time because I was just 22 and just began my profession. In order to balance work and parenthood, I raised Isabella with assistance from my parents and in-laws. As she grew older, things became easier, but there were challenges associated with not having a mother. This April, however, Isabella began her adult life. Even though she is only 22, she appears to be very mature for her age. To compensate for her mother's absence, she must have put forth extra effort. Part of me wishes she could have just enjoyed being a child, but I'm proud of her. But right now, I'm not sure what I can do to help her. I have simply been following the current. Nevertheless, I'm happy living with Isabella. My favorite thing to do is have meals with her. There's only one thing that keeps coming to mind. She has frequently appeared depressed ever since she began working. Has something occurred? No, I'm all right. Simply exhausted. I understand. Then take a nap. Her responses are evasive even when I inquire. Since I had nothing else to do, I let her sleep. Her look kept growing deeper, and I thought that with time, she would feel better. On her days off, she used to play tennis, but these days she just stays home. In the afternoon, she rises, has lunch, and immediately returns to her room. It was obvious that something was off, but I couldn't make her talk if she didn't want to. So, with a heavy heart, I continued to live my life as usual. Isabella abruptly declared one day that she wanted to change occupations. I believe I want to switch careers. This one doesn't seem like it would work for me. Has that been causing you any trouble lately? Yes, it's not the business I had anticipated. So, I've been considering giving up. She must have been under a lot of stress because she hadn't even been there for a year. However, leaving college so soon could have an impact on her future career. Are you certain that someone else would hire you even if you leave right now? You know that, don't you? Yes, I do. However, still, after hearing what I had to say, Isabella was speechless. You should do whatever you think is best, in my opinion. It's your life. Make sure you won't regret it, though. You're right. I'll think about it some more. Thanks, Dad. Later, I kept wondering if I said the right thing. But no matter how much I thought about it, there was no clear answer. It was up to Isabella now. 2 weeks later, Isabella still looked down as she left for work. I was getting ready to leave myself when she came home just 30 minutes after leaving. Something had definitely happened. I asked, "What happened?" She replied like always, "It's nothing." The words she gave in return were the same as always, but today Isabella seemed different. Even when I asked her what was wrong, she said nothing, keeping her lips tightly pressed together, refusing to speak. I decided to take the day off. "Are you feeling sick? Then go rest in your room." "Yeah, I'm sorry, Dad." At first, I didn't understand what she meant, but when I saw her heading to her room, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a piece of paper about the size of printer paper taped to her back. I quickly pulled it off and read it. The message was so cruel. I couldn't believe it. "You are not needed in this company. Just get out already." What's this? It was so shocking. I read it out loud. "Ah, give that back. Isabella, what's going on? Who did this?" Well, it was my boss. When I asked more, I learned she'd been harassed for some time. The culprit was her direct supervisor, Samuel, who is 40 years old. He's the department manager. Right after she joined, he forced extra work on her and didn't let her do the same tasks as others. When she protested, the harassment escalated. They didn't call me to meetings, and I wasn't given important documents. Why would they do that? And why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to worry you. I'm sorry. That was the first time Isabella cried in front of me. She'd never shown tears since she was little, but I knew she must have wanted to cry all along. I held her tightly as she cried. "I'm sorry I didn't notice. I'll take care of it now. You just rest." "What do you mean? What are you going to do?" "I'm going to your company." Normally, I don't get angry or show frustration, but this time I was furious. Seeing my precious daughter hurt for such an unreasonable reason, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of frustration toward that man, Samuel. But what are you going to do there? Don't worry. Just leave it to me. With Isabella looking on in concern, I headed to her company. At reception, I asked to speak with Samuel, but of course, I was denied. My daughter works here. She suddenly said she's taking leave and I must speak to her supervisor. I see. Normally, that's not allowed. But please wait a moment. Maybe because I pleaded sincerely, the receptionist went to call Samuel from the office. Sometime later, a small man wearing glasses showed up. What do you want? I'm busy, so make it quick. Samuel looked at me with a sluggish expression, his hands shoved in his pockets. I'm Isabella's father. I'd like to ask you a few things about what's been going on. Seriously? She sent her father? What kind of nerve does that take? That's unbelievable. As soon as I introduced myself as Isabella's father, Samuel burst out laughing. There was a really cruel note stuck to Isabella's back. Was that your doing? Yeah, that was me. I can't stand her. I wish she just quit already. Did she do something to deserve that kind of treatment? From what I've heard from Isabella, there's no reason she would be targeted like that. But then Samuel said something outrageous. She's taller than me. Okay, and she gets attention like she's some kind of model. It ticks me off. That's it. That's your reason. That's it. That's enough. It hits a nerve and I hate it. I was stunned. He'd been harassing her just because she was taller and got attention from others? It's true. Isabella is about 5 feet 7 inches and has a good figure. But that's no excuse for harassment. And if that were the reason, others would fit too. Why only target Isabella? Because she looked weak. Watching her crumble was hilarious. Hearing that, I couldn't help but mutter, I see. Then I have an idea, too. You'd better be ready. Huh? What did you say? You and your daughter talk too quietly. Say it louder. I said, be ready. You have no idea who you just picked a fight with. Samuel tilted his head in confusion. What's this? Trying to scare me now? Scare you? You bluffing? You mean you're the threat or your daughter? As Samuel taunted me with a smug expression, I glanced at him sideways and pulled out my phone. What? Calling for help? Don't say I didn't warn you when you regret it later. Regret? You think I'd ever feel that? You know who I am. After hearing those words from Samuel, I made a call to someone. The moment they answered, I switched to speaker mode. Hello? How have you been? This is Thomas. Thomas? What a surprise. What can I do for you? I'm actually at your company right now. Something's come up. When Samuel realized I was talking to Mr. Kensington, the company president, his eyes widened. He hadn't expected me to be connected to someone like him. A problem? What happened? Did one of our employees? Yes. I'd like to talk about someone named Samuel from my daughter's department. Samuel, I see. I'll head over immediately. Please wait just a moment. With that, Mr. Kensington hung up. Was that just now? You know him well, right? That was Mr. Kensington, the president of this company. We go way back. How? You're not supposed to have any connection to him. Still in disbelief, Samuel stared at me. Soon after, Mr. Kensington came running in, drenched in sweat. Sorry to keep you waiting. Did Samuel do something? You might want to hear it directly from him. Yes, of course. Samuel, would you mind explaining what happened? Mr. Kensington asked, but Samuel refused to speak. Instead, he tried to make me look like the villain. I didn't do anything. I don't even know who this guy is. He just barged in and accused me. Accused you of what? He said I harassed his daughter out of nowhere. Hearing that, Mr. Kensington glanced at me. Is that true? Everything except the part about me barging in is true. I see. I can't say for sure myself. May I speak with Isabella? It was clear Mr. Kensington wasn't sure who to believe yet, and that made sense. He needed to hear from both sides to judge fairly. But Isabella likely didn't have the strength to show up right now. Isabella's mentally and physically exhausted. I don't think she can take part in a meeting. Oh, come on. She's just running away, isn't she? Admit it's all a lie. Hey, watch your tone. Feeling safe now that Isabella wouldn't come, Samuel acted cocky even in front of Mr. Kensington. It's fine. Let him say whatever he wants. Okay then. You've been acting all high and mighty. Who do you think you are? Some big shot. Samuel still didn't know who I really was and kept running his mouth. I wondered if he realized he couldn't back out anymore. Mr. Kensington looked worried that things might escalate. You're around 40, right? So what? Don't tell me I have to show respect just because you're older. No, not that. I just find it sad that someone that age still acts so foolish. At my words, Samuel furrowed his brow. It seemed what I had just said had struck a deep chord with him. Keep running your mouth and see what happens. Now he was visibly angry. I think you're the one who should be worried about what's coming next. What are you talking about? You probably don't know this, but I'm a major shareholder here. Time seemed to stop around Samuel. The major shareholder? Yes. I own a large portion of this company's stock and attend shareholder meetings. That can't be. I've worked the front desk at those meetings, but I've never seen your face. Apparently, Samuel had once handled reception for a shareholder meeting, but it's no surprise he wouldn't remember faces. I hadn't remembered his either. It's not strange that you don't remember, but the fact remains that I'm a major shareholder. No way. That can't be true. It's true. This man is one of our biggest investors and has done a lot for this company. Mr. Kensington's words sealed it. Samuel had no choice but to accept the truth. So what if you're a major shareholder? That has nothing to do with your daughter. I didn't do anything wrong. If you're so confident, then I'd like to request a review of the security footage and ask other employees for statements. Why should I have to go through that? Despite claiming innocence, as soon as I mentioned an investigation, sweat started pouring from Samuel's forehead. You don't want to stay under suspicion, right? Then prove your innocence. I don't think Thomas would lie, but we'll need to confirm the facts for the sake of fairness. Wait, it was me. I think I may have harassed her. At last, Samuel finally admitted to what he had done. However, I just couldn't accept such a vague and unclear explanation. What exactly do you mean by I think? I didn't think it was harassment. I assumed it was just a misunderstanding. Oh, and you think putting something like this on someone's back can be dismissed as a mere misunderstanding? As I said that, I pulled out the paper that had been stuck on Isabella's back. What is this? This is terrible. Did you really do this? No, you've got it all wrong. Very well. A proper investigation will reveal the truth, Thomas. We'll look into this thoroughly and get back to you right away. Understood. I hope you'll handle this matter with sincerity. And with that, I left Isabella's workplace. Just before walking away, I glanced back briefly, and I'll never forget the devastated look on Samuel's face at that moment. Sometime later, I received a direct call from Mr. Kensington about Samuel. It turned out just as you said. We decided to assign him to a different department away from Isabella. I sincerely apologize. I'm glad to hear that. By the way, which department was Samuel transferred to? Apparently, Samuel had been removed from the career track and pushed into a dead-end department. He insisted he wouldn't quit no matter what, but most people in that department end up leaving within 6 months because they can't find any sense of fulfillment. After taking a short break, Isabella eventually returned to work. It's been about a month since then, and I feel like she smiles more often now. But for Samuel, this was only the beginning of his descent into misery. In the new department, Samuel was forced to repeat the same monotonous tasks every day, and it gradually took a toll on both his mind and body. He couldn't accept being removed from the promotion track and repeatedly protested to Mr. Kensington, only to be shut down each time, until eventually, he gave up trying altogether. Then Samuel declared that he was quitting the company. I'm done with this place. It makes no sense for someone as capable as me to be treated like this, he shouted, submitting his resignation letter. After quitting, he visited many companies in search of a new job, but no one would hire him. At home, when his family asked why he had left his job and he told them the truth, his wife took the children and left him. In the end, Samuel couldn't find a new job and has been barely scraping by on his savings, living alone in solitude, or so I heard through the grapevine. But I can say with certainty that Samuel's downfall isn't just a rumor, because recently, I saw him myself. He looked like a completely different person. That day, I had gone to a casual pub with Isabella. Tonight's on me. Order whatever you like. Are you sure? Wasn't this your first bonus? Exactly. I wanted to celebrate it with you, Dad. It was just a simple pub, nothing fancy. But to me, it meant more than any high-end restaurant. Isabella was smiling as she looked through the menu, her eyes darting around, trying to decide what to order. But then, the moment she looked up, her expression froze. What's wrong? That guy over there, isn't that Samuel? Hearing her words, I quickly turned around, and sure enough, there he was, Samuel, arguing with a staff member near the register. I didn't order this much. You're ripping me off. Call the police. He was shouting angrily, clearly upset about the bill. Very well. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Of course. I'm struggling enough as it is, and you're trying to rob me blind." The staff member then pulled out a phone and began calling the police. Before long, a patrol car arrived, and the officers began questioning both of them. "You have security cameras here, correct? We'll need to review the footage." "Wait, cameras? What cameras?" "We have them in all four corners, and two more in the center of the room." Samuel, who had looked so confident moments ago, suddenly went pale upon hearing that. "No one told me that." "Well, then let's continue this conversation at the station." "Wait, please." Samuel tried to make excuses, but no one listened. He was taken away in the patrol car. "He hasn't changed at all, has he?" "No. Let's not let someone like him ruin our night." After that, Isabella and I talked about many things. "Is there anything you want to do next, Isabella?" I guess maybe I'd like to try falling in love." "Love, huh?" "She's already an adult, after all. Some people even get married in their early 20s. The fact that she hasn't had any romantic experiences until now doesn't mean much. It wouldn't be surprising at all if she found someone. I didn't want to make you feel lonely, so I never really brought it up." "I get it. I thought I was ready for this, but when the time actually comes, I don't know how to handle it." "You're about to cry, aren't you?" "Stop it. I don't even have anyone yet." I couldn't help it. I cried in front of Isabella for the first time in a long time. Thinking about the person she might bring home someday, I finished the last of my beer. "Someone wonderful is going to come into your life, Isabella." "Of course. After all, I was raised by you, Dad." Her words made my tears flow even faster. My name is Jonathan Wright, and I thought I had it all figured out. Until one fateful day, everything came crashing down. I'd worked at Drexler Tech for over 5 years, climbing the corporate ladder with dedication and precision. I was the senior project manager, known for my problem-solving skills and my knack for getting things done. On paper, my career was golden. I had a steady paycheck, a comfortable office, and the respect of my peers. At least, that's what I thought. It was a Tuesday morning, just like any other, when the email hit my inbox. "Urgent meeting with CEO, conference room A, 9 a.m. I didn't think much of it at first. The CEO, Edward Drexler, had always been a figurehead, a distant presence in the company. Meetings with him were rare, and usually just formalities. But something felt off about this one. I arrived early, my mind racing through the possibilities. Was I being promoted? Was there a new project on the horizon? I wasn't prepared for what happened next. As I stepped into conference room A, I noticed the atmosphere was different. There was no warmth, no casual conversation. Just Edward Drexler, seated at the head of the table, looking uncharacteristically stern. Alongside him was the vice president, Karen Wells, a woman known for her sharp tongue and even sharper ambition. "Jonathan," Edward said, his voice cold, "I'm afraid we have to let you go." Effective immediately, I froze. My heart sank to my stomach. "What? But why?" I stammered, struggling to comprehend the situation. I had been a loyal employee, and I'd just completed a major project ahead of schedule. There had to be some mistake. Karen didn't even look up from her tablet. "Don't take it personally, Jonathan. The dumb and poor get the axe," she said dismissively, her tone dripping with contempt. I stared at her, unable to process her words. This wasn't just a firing, it was an execution. A professional and personal betrayal, all wrapped into one. My mind raced, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. Had I missed something? Was there a memo I didn't get? Edward, still as cold as ever, simply nodded. "It's done. Pack your things." Before I could say another word, the door to the conference room opened. I turned to see Claire, the CEO's secretary, rushing in. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic. She didn't even stop to acknowledge the two of them before walking straight toward me. "Jonathan, I need to talk to you." "It's urgent," Claire said, her voice trembling. The tension in the room thickened. I had no idea what was happening, but I could sense that whatever it was big. Her sudden appearance was too important to ignore. Edward and Karen exchanged a glance, clearly irritated by the interruption. But they said nothing. Claire's eyes darted around the room nervously, and then, in a hushed tone, she whispered, "Jonathan, you've been fired because of a mistake." "No, a deliberate mistake. Someone made a huge error, and they've been trying to cover it up, but you're the one they decided to blame." My heart skipped a beat. Deliberate mistake? Cover up? I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Who's responsible for this? I demanded, but Claire shook her head. I can't say too much, but I'll be in touch. Just be careful. This isn't over. With that, she turned and rushed out of the room as quickly as she had entered. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. The room felt suffocating, the words still hanging in the air. What did she mean by that? Edward and Karen exchanged uncomfortable glances. They both stood, signaling that the meeting was over. You should leave now, Jonathan, Karen said coldly, offering no further explanation. I was still in shock as I grabbed my bag and walked out of the room, but as I passed the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that Claire's words were just the beginning. Something bigger was at play, and I was determined to find out what it was. I left the building that day feeling like my world had just been ripped apart. The cold, sterile corporate lobby seemed to mock me as I walked through it, my footsteps echoing in the emptiness. I'd been fired, with no explanation, no chance to defend myself. And yet, something about the way Claire had rushed into that room and spoken to me, her urgency, her fear, made it clear that there was more to this story. I tried to focus, to process the situation, but the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Claire had been adamant about a deliberate mistake, a cover-up. Who would have something to gain by using me as a scapegoat? My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a text from my former colleague, Mark. Mark, heard what happened. You okay? I paused for a moment, considering how much to share. Mark was a good guy, but he was still an outsider compared to the higher-ups. Sharing too much could get him tangled in something dangerous. Me? Not sure yet. They just kicked me out with no reason. You know anything? Mark's reply came almost immediately. Mark, not much. But I heard some weird stuff going on with the budget, and I overheard Karen talking about some dead weight being removed. I think they're cleaning house, but I don't know why you'd be caught up in it. My stomach twisted. Dead weight. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. Had I really been that disposable to them? I'd given everything to Drexler Tech, my time, my energy, my trust. And this was how I was repaid? I walked to my car, not even bothering to check the rearview mirror. I didn't care if anyone saw me leaving. But as I slid into the driver's seat, my thoughts raced. Who was behind this? Was it really just about the budget, or was there something more personal going on here? I had no answers, just more questions. As I sat in the car, trying to gather my thoughts, I received another message. This time, it was from Claire. Claire, we need to talk. Meet me at the diner on 5th Street. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't tell anyone. I stared at the text for a long time. This was it, the chance I needed to get some real answers. But there was a risk. If Edward or Karen found out I was meeting with Claire, there could be serious consequences. Still, I couldn't sit around waiting for answers to fall into my lap. I had to take action. I decided to go. The diner on 5th Street was a small, greasy spoon kind of place. The kind of diner you went to when you needed to think, not when you were looking for good food. But that's exactly what I needed. A place where I could clear my mind and hopefully get some clarity on the situation. When I arrived, I spotted Claire immediately. She was sitting in a booth near the back, nervously glancing around as if she was expecting someone to come through the door at any moment. I slid into the seat across from her, trying to mask my nervousness. You came, Claire said, her voice a little shaky. She seemed out of breath, like she had been running. Listen, Jonathan, I didn't want to get involved, but this is bigger than just you. I leaned forward, my eyes locked onto hers. What are you talking about? You said there was a cover-up, a deliberate mistake. What's going on? Claire looked around the diner again, her hand trembling as she took a sip from her coffee. I don't know everything, but I overheard a conversation in the office a few days ago. Edward and Karen were talking about an illegal deal, something shady with the company's finances. There's a project, a major one, that's been intentionally mismanaged, and they're blaming you for it. They're setting you up to take the fall. They need someone to scapegoat. I blinked, my heart racing. But why? Why me? What do they have to gain by getting rid of me? She paused, her eyes darting to the window as if she was afraid someone would be watching us. You don't understand. Edward is in deep with some people. People I don't think you want to mess with. This whole thing, it's not just about business. It's personal for him. He's trying to cover his own tracks, and you're the easiest target. My mind was spinning. So you're telling me I've been fired for something I didn't even do? And now I'm supposed to just take the fall for some corporate mess I had nothing to do with? Claire nodded, her expression filled with guilt. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I really am. But this isn't over. You have to fight back. You can't let them destroy you like this. I felt a burning anger rise in my chest. I had worked so hard for this company. I had sacrificed so much. And now, I was being thrown away like yesterday's trash. The injustice of it all made my blood boil. What can I do? I asked, my voice quieter now, but filled with determination. I don't know yet, Claire said. But I'll help you. I have information. Things I've seen. I'll share them with you. But you need to be careful. Edward's not someone you want to cross. I looked at her, feeling both grateful and terrified. There was no turning back now. This wasn't just about my career anymore. It was about survival. As we talked more, I could feel the weight of what was coming. Claire wasn't just offering information. She was offering a lifeline. The question was, could I trust her completely? The following days were a blur. I couldn't focus at home, couldn't concentrate at the gym, and barely managed to keep my mind occupied with anything other than the mess that had become my life. But as the hours passed, one thing became clear. I had no choice but to confront this head-on. If I let it fester, if I allowed Edward and Karen's conspiracy to go unchecked, it wouldn't just cost me my career, it might cost me everything. Claire had told me that she'd help, but what exactly did that mean? She'd dropped a bombshell, but I needed more. Concrete evidence, a plan. I couldn't just walk into their offices and demand answers. That would make me look like a desperate, disgruntled ex-employee. But what if there was a way to turn the tables? I decided to meet with Claire again, this time at a different location, somewhere less likely to attract attention. We agreed to meet at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, a quiet spot that offered anonymity. I arrived first, sitting at a corner table, the cool air of the morning mingling with my thoughts. When Claire walked in, her face was pale, her hands clasped tightly around her purse. She was visibly anxious, her eyes darting around as she approached. "You look worse than I feel," I said, trying to lighten the mood, though my voice lacked its usual edge. "I know. This is bigger than I thought," she whispered as she sat down across from me, glancing over her shoulder one last time before speaking. "They've noticed me asking questions. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to help you, Jonathan. If they figure out I'm the one feeding you information," her voice trailed off, and I could see the fear in her eyes. I leaned in, keeping my voice low. "You've already helped me more than anyone else has. But I need more. You told me Edward's mixed up in something illegal, that he's trying to cover up. I need specifics. What's going on, Claire? What's this about a mismanaged project?" Claire hesitated for a moment, wringing her hands together. "The project, it's called Project Nexus. It's supposed to be this massive new product, something Drexler Tech was hoping would launch us into the next decade of innovation. But there's been a huge problem with the budget. The numbers don't add up, and I've seen some documents that suggest they've been inflating costs and using it as a front to funnel money. Edward's been siphoning off funds for months." I felt a cold chill run through me. "And you're saying I got caught in the middle of this?" Claire nodded slowly, her eyes downcast. "I don't think it was personal at first, but now they're trying to cover it all up. They're blaming you for a failure that was never your fault. They need someone to take the fall, and you're the easiest target." I slammed my fist onto the table, drawing the attention of a few patrons. But I didn't care. This was it. The truth had finally come out, and it was worse than I could have imagined. "I can't just sit back and let them do this to me," I said, my voice low but filled with conviction. "I need to expose this. I need proof." Claire's eyes widened. "You can't just go in there guns blazing, Jonathan. They'll bury you. Edward is connected. His influence is everywhere. You need a plan." I ran my fingers through my hair, frustration mounting. "I can't just do nothing, Claire. I've worked my entire life to get where I am, and they're going to throw me under the bus just like that." I snapped my fingers. "No way." Claire bit her lip, thinking. Then, her face softened, a flicker of hope returning to her eyes. "There's a chance. There's a file, one of the internal documents, that could prove everything. It's in the system, locked behind a password, but I think I can get it for you." My heart raced. "How? You don't have access to those files anymore, right?" "I can get access, but I need you to be careful," Claire said. "If you go through the back door of their system and take that file, they'll never know it was me. You'll have the proof you need to expose them. But once you do this, you can't back out." My mind whirled with the implications. This was it. The proof I needed, the truth I could take to the authorities, to the press, to everyone who needed to know about Edward's betrayal. "I'm in." I said, my voice steady now. Give me the file, Claire. I'll take it from there. She nodded, but there was something in her eyes, a hint of uncertainty, as if she wasn't sure this was going to work. But she trusted me, and for the first time in days, I felt like I had a shot at winning this. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Claire had set everything in motion, giving me the details on how to access the internal system. She walked me through the process step by step, explaining what I needed to do in order to avoid detection. She even managed to get me a temporary login, one that would give me the access I needed to download the file. The plan was simple. I would log into the system, retrieve the file, and get out without leaving a trace. Easy enough, right? But as the day of the heist arrived, I found myself questioning everything. Could I really go through with this? What if I got caught? What if I lost everything? My career, my reputation, my freedom. The stakes were higher than they had ever been before, and every part of me wanted to back out. But then I remembered Claire's words, the way she'd looked at me with both fear and determination. She was risking everything to help me. If she could do that, the least I could do was follow through. I dressed in a suit, trying to look as inconspicuous as possible. The office would be quiet in the late afternoon, which gave me a small window of opportunity. I would have to move quickly, no room for error. When I arrived at Drexler Tech, the building was almost deserted. I made my way through the familiar halls, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling of dread in my stomach. Each step felt like a countdown to something inevitable. I reached the server room and quickly entered the login details Claire had provided. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I waited for the system to accept my credentials. A moment later, the screen flashed green, signaling that I was in. I moved fast, pulling up the file directory Claire had mentioned. There it was, Project Nexus, Financial Overview. I clicked on the file and began downloading it, my heart pounding in my chest. I had done it. I had the evidence. But as the download finished, the door to the server room creaked open. The door creaked open, and my heart nearly stopped. I froze, my fingers still poised over the mouse as I heard the soft shuffle of footsteps approaching. There was no time to panic, no time to think. The file was nearly downloaded, only a few seconds left. I quickly minimized the screen and slid my finger to the exit button, praying to any higher power that the system wouldn't register my intrusion. But before I could click, I heard the unmistakable sound of shoes tapping on the floor. It was Edward. "Jonathan," he said, his voice smooth and cold, as though he were speaking to an old friend rather than an enemy. "I didn't expect to see you here. What are you doing in the server room?" I turned slowly, keeping my face neutral, just making sure everything's running smoothly. Edward narrowed his eyes, scanning the room as though looking for some sign of guilt. He leaned casually against the doorframe, his posture deliberately relaxed. Too relaxed. He was a man who knew he held power, and he wasn't afraid to flaunt it. "Well," he continued, "I'm sure you know better than to mess around with things you don't understand, Jonathan. The company's had some changes, and you, my friend, aren't exactly part of those changes." I knew what he was implying. The conversation was his way of sending a message, asserting dominance. He had no intention of letting me leave this building with any evidence. I kept my voice calm, refusing to show any weakness. "I'm just trying to keep things in order, Edward. You know how it is." Edward stepped forward, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "I know exactly how it is. But you, Jonathan, you're not needed here anymore. The dead weight needs to be trimmed. You're a relic of a different time." His words hit me like a slap in the face, but I couldn't let it show. I had to stay focused. I had the file, proof of everything he'd been hiding. "I think you're underestimating me," I said, my voice low but firm. "I'm not the one who's out of place here, Edward." Edward smirked, clearly amused. "Is that so? I think you'll find, Jonathan, that the only thing you've got left is a few pathetic files and a dream that was never meant to be. You're nothing more than an inconvenience." I could feel the pressure mounting. The file was everything. If I could just make it out of here, if I could just get to a place where I could expose the truth, everything would change. But as I stood there facing Edward, the weight of his words and the danger of the situation began to close in on me. Edward's eyes flicked to the computer screen, and for a split second, I thought he might see the download progress bar still sitting there, like a ticking time bomb. I quickly pressed the X button to close the window, but the seconds felt like hours. "Well," Edward said, his voice suddenly lighter, almost playful, I have to admit, Jonathan, you've got more nerve than I thought. He stepped closer, and my heart raced. Was he onto me? Was he going to call security? If he knew what I'd done, if he found out I'd accessed the files. Just then, the door behind Edward opened again, and Karen entered the room. Her eyes immediately narrowed when she saw me. "Edward," she said, her voice sharp. "What's going on?" Edward glanced back at her and then back at me. There was a brief, almost imperceptible hesitation in his gaze, and in that moment, I realized he didn't know I had the evidence. But I wasn't going to wait around for him to figure it out. I took a deep breath and made a split-second decision. "Tell me, Edward," I said, trying to keep my tone even, "how does it feel to know that everything you've been hiding is about to be exposed?" His face went cold, his smirk dropping as reality hit him. He knew I wasn't bluffing. For the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. But then Karen stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "You're not going anywhere, Jonathan," she said, her tone low and menacing. "Not with that file. Not with the truth." I took a step back, my mind racing. "I already have it. It's already out of your reach. You'll never be able to cover this up." Edward straightened up, his demeanor shifting from amused arrogance to something darker. "We'll see about that," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "But let me remind you, Jonathan, there's a price for crossing us." And just as he said that, Claire's face appeared in the doorway behind them, her expression one of pure panic. "Jonathan," she cried, rushing in with wide eyes. "We need to go now." Karen and Edward both turned to look at her, their expressions filled with disbelief. For a brief moment, everything seemed to stand still. Claire's eyes locked onto mine, pleading, and I knew then that it was time to act. The air in the server room was thick with tension. Claire's sudden appearance threw Edward and Karen off balance, just long enough for me to make my move. I could see it in their eyes, surprise, confusion, and perhaps even a flicker of doubt. But I didn't have the luxury of time to savor it. If I didn't act fast, I would lose everything. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Edward asked, his voice laced with venom. He was no longer pretending to be the cool, detached boss. Now he was angry, furious. "You're making a huge mistake." Claire didn't flinch. She stood her ground, looking directly at me. "We need to go, Jonathan," she repeated, more urgently this time. "They're going to." I didn't give her a chance to finish. My mind was already racing with the options. I had the file, but I couldn't let it be wiped away, not after all this. I needed to get out of there. I needed to make sure the truth got out before Edward or Karen could bury it. Without warning, I turned and bolted toward the door, pushing Claire to the side as I darted past her. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my pulse throbbing in my temples. I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I wasn't thinking about how Edward and Karen might retaliate. All I could think about was getting the evidence to safety. "Stop him," Edward shouted, his voice sharp and demanding. I heard the sound of footsteps behind me, and I knew they were coming after me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Claire was right behind me, her breath quick and panicked. "Jonathan, we have to hurry. If they get to the file, it's all over." We reached the elevator bank, and my fingers were trembling as I pressed the down button. The elevator doors dinged open, and I stepped inside, dragging Claire with me. "Get to the car. I'll meet you there," I said, my voice strained. I knew I couldn't trust anyone else. Not yet. Not with everything at stake. The doors slid shut, and the elevator began its descent. I glanced down at my phone. There was no time to waste. I needed to send the file to a secure server, one that would make it impossible for anyone to erase. Just as the elevator reached the ground floor, I saw the shadows of two figures, Edward and Karen, rushing toward it. I wasn't going to make it out in time. I pressed the button for the lobby doors to open, and the elevator shot down to the garage level. It felt like an eternity before the doors finally opened, and I sprinted toward the exit. Claire had already made it to the car. She was waiting for me with the engine running, her eyes frantic. I jumped into the passenger seat, slamming the door behind me. "Go!" I shouted. Without hesitation, Claire hit the gas, and we tore out of the parking garage, my heart still racing as I glanced in the rearview mirror. The sight of the Drexler Tech building fading into the distance gave me a sense of relief, but I knew it wasn't over yet. They would be coming for me, trying to make sure I never exposed what I'd uncovered. "Are you sure it worked?" Claire asked, her voice trembling slightly as she focused on the road ahead. "Did you send it?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the confirmation. The file had been uploaded. It was safe. Yeah, I said, exhaling deeply. It's done. We drove in silence for a few minutes, the weight of what we'd just done sinking in. The rush of adrenaline started to fade, and I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. But there was still a lot to figure out. Edward and Karen wouldn't stop here. They'd try to destroy me, to cover up their tracks. But now, I had leverage. I had the proof I needed, and I wasn't going to let them win. Finally, Claire broke the silence. You know this isn't over, right? She said quietly. They're not going to just let it go. If they find out we're the ones who did this. I know. I replied, my voice firm. But now they can't do anything without looking guilty. They can't just sweep it under the rug anymore. I felt the weight of the decision we'd made settle in my chest. I wasn't just fighting for my job anymore. This was bigger. This was about exposing corruption, about showing the world the truth. The news hit harder than I expected. The details of the mismanaged funds, the falsified financial reports, and the illegal activities tied to Project Nexus spread like wildfire. The media was relentless, and every outlet seemed to be reporting new revelations about the scandal. What I hadn't expected, though, was how fast things escalated within Drexler Tech. Edward and Karen were fired in a dramatic board meeting. The story of their betrayal was all over the news, and it wasn't long before the authorities began investigating the full extent of their actions. The company was in chaos, scrambling to pick up the pieces. But for me, it was a bittersweet victory. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but seeing the people responsible for my downfall fall from grace felt hollow. I had lost so much in the process, and I was still uncertain about what my future would look like. The corporate world had a way of swallowing people up and spitting them out, and now I had become another casualty in its unforgiving machinery. But there was one thing that kept me going, the moral victory. I had stood up, faced the impossible, and fought back. And I hadn't done it alone. Days passed, and I found myself grappling with the aftermath. The storm had settled, but its effects were far-reaching. The entire company had been turned upside down, and Drexler Tech was a shadow of its former self. The media coverage continued, but now, it wasn't just about the scandal. It was about the people who were left behind. The employees who had lost their jobs. The clients who had been betrayed by the leadership they trusted. And, of course, the people who had been wronged in the process. Claire and I, surprisingly, hadn't been touched. The company, in its scramble for control, had decided to offer me a new position, one that was far more senior than anything I had ever imagined. It was their way of trying to patch up the damage. A way to make me feel like part of the solution. But I wasn't sure I wanted to stay. I found myself walking into the new office they had given me, the same office Edward once occupied. The views were impressive, but they held no appeal for me. It felt empty. The desk felt hollow, like a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I stared out the window, watching the bustling city below, wondering if it was all worth it. Was the price of exposing the truth worth the destruction? I had lost so much in the process. My career, my sense of security, my trust in the system I'd once been a part of. Hey, Claire's voice broke through my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, her expression concerned. You all right? I turned to her, forcing a smile. Yeah, just thinking. She stepped inside and shut the door behind her. I know this is a lot, but you did the right thing, Jonathan. You brought the truth to light. I nodded, but her words didn't soothe the restless feeling in my chest. It doesn't feel that way. Everyone's gone, Claire. The people who caused this, gone. The system? It's still standing, still broken, and I don't know what to do with that. Claire crossed the room and sat down on the edge of the desk. You don't have to do anything, Jonathan. You're doing exactly what you need to do. You fought for what was right. And if they're offering you this position now, it's because you showed them they can't just steamroll over people. You've already won. I didn't know if she was right. But one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I had been through too much. The fight had changed me. The fight had shown me who I truly was and what I was willing to stand for. The phone on my desk buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from a former colleague, someone I had trusted before everything had fallen apart. The message was short. I've got your back. We all do. It was a small gesture, but in that moment, it meant everything. The battle was far from over, but the war wasn't lost. I had allies, real ones. People who saw beyond the chaos and believed in something more than just corporate games and office politics. I think it's time to make some changes around here, I said quietly, looking back at Claire. She smiled, as though she already knew what I was thinking. I think you're ready to lead, Jonathan. I stood up from the desk, feeling a new sense of purpose. It wasn't just about taking down the corrupt. It wasn't just about revenge or vindication anymore. It was about creating something better, something that worked for the people, not against them. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be hurdles ahead, but I was no longer afraid of the fight. The truth was on my side, and that made all the difference. As I walked out of the office, heading towards my new future, I didn't feel the weight of the past pressing down on me anymore. I was ready to move forward, ready to lead the way. And this time, I was going to do it on my terms.